Hello everyone, TMMgamer here, and today I have the pleasure of bringing you another FIFA 13 tutorial. Now today's tutorial is going to be the first in a series of videos where I run through all of the most used formations in the game and explain their strengths, their weaknesses, and just basically give you an overview of the formation to see whether it's good for you. Now the first formation that I'm going to be previewing today, as you can see from the image on the screen, is 4-3-1-2. Now that's with 4 guys at the back, 3 central midfielders, a centre forward and 2 strikers. And the game I'm showing you here, which has just come up, is a Ultimate Team friendly game between me and my friend John, and now both of us use the 4-3-1-2 formation. So I thought it was a really good video for seeing both how the formation works in attack and in defense all at the same time. So I really hope you enjoy the video, and what I'm going to be doing is just plunge straight in. Now the great thing about using this formation is its flexibility. Now you see some formations, for example the ones I'm thinking about now are the ones on Ultimate Team with 5 at the back, that really limit the way you can play football, because when you've got 5 at the back and you might be playing the 5-2-1-2 formation, the only way you can really play that is counter-attacking football, because you've got so many people in your half of the pitch, you're basically inviting your opponents onto you. But the great thing about using 4-3-1-2 is it has a massive array of possible opportunities and ways to play, and that's because it's set up very nicely for a variety of different styles. If you like to pass the ball around, having 3 central midfielders really does enable you to gain control of the midfield, and it's very rare when you've got the ball and you don't have a midfielder open for a pass, because sometimes you play flat 4-4-2 or 4-1-2-1-2 and you have teams that put 5 guys in midfield, and you can feel a little bit overwhelmed and it forces you to be a little bit too direct. But the great thing about playing this formation is you've always got those 3 central midfielders, and if you're getting a little bit too overrun in midfield, you can just roll it into the feet of a centre forward or roll it wide to a fullback and start the play again. But saying that, if you find yourself upon or against an opponent who's equally good at keeping the ball and you find yourself on the back foot, this is a brilliant formation to counter-attack with, because when you're hemmed in your own area or your own half of the field, your centre forward is free 99% of the time. So one pass can effectively cut out sometimes as many as 8 opposition players. So it does give you a real wide range of opportunities when you're attacking. You can control the play by passing it around, or you can play more direct and go counter-attacking. There's really lots of options, and that's the first major reason why I really like this formation. The second reason is you get fullbacks who can bomb forward into absolutely acres of space. Because you're playing quite a narrow 3 midfielders, as you can see in the video here, when you get the ball you tend to drag the opponent's midfield quite narrow, and this gives your fullbacks great opportunity to get in behind the opponent. And you see, whenever I play several times a match, because I've got Bakary Sagna on the right and Leighton Baines on the left in my Ultimate Team, and they're 2 pretty adventurous fullbacks, you see me just bomb down the wing with my fullbacks, and it helps stretch the play. So whilst your central midfield can be quite narrow, as long as you've got fullbacks who can get forward and get up the pitch, it's really not a negative at all. You can still make the pitch as wide as possible. Just for example here, I've passed it wide to my fullback, it stretches the midfield out, and then it gives me opportunity to switch the play and have a lot more space on the other side of the field. And it's just a really good formation to do that. And as you can see from there, just by me passing to a fullback, it gets space for James Milner in the centre of the field to finish and score a good goal. And that's one of the main reasons why this is such a potent formation going forward. You've got such a vast array of options. You can bring in your striker, your centre forward, or if it's a little bit tight in midfield, you spray it out wide and you get it to a fullback who can push right up to the byline and cross the ball in. Or if you're a little bit cramped on that side, you can quickly pass it to the midfielder, switch the play and move up on the other flank. So it's a really good, well balanced formation in attack. Now another really good thing about this formation is its defensive solidity. Because you've got 3 central midfielders who can sit right on the edge of your penalty area if you're under pressure, you're very hard to break down through the middle. And what this forces people to do is it forces people to go wide. Now because you've got those three central midfielders in the middle and you force people to go wide, you're really limiting them to just crosses. And if you have decent centre-backs who are good and strong in the air, as long as you don't get caught on the break too often, you can really limit your opponent's attacking options to just going down the flank. And it does take a little bit of getting used to, but as you can see, you know, whenever I'm on the defence, I try and dive in as little as possible. I always make my opponent try and do something special, and the aim of my defending is to try and force them wide, force them into the corners, and then when they're hemmed in and out of space, you can take the ball off them. And the great thing about playing the 4-3-1-2 is, you know, your three midfielders in the middle really do give you an opportunity, if you're a little bit under the cosh, just to sit in, batten down the hatches, and be very, very solid. And the problem with a formation, for example, like 4-1-2-1-2, is you struggle to do that as much because you're a little bit more exposed in the centre of the park, because you've only got that one holding midfielder who's any really defensive minded in that formation. So under wave after wave of pressure, you find yourself a little bit vulnerable. But the great thing about this formation is you can quite happily sit on the edge of the area, soak up pressure, and like I was saying earlier, because you've got the centre forward free up the field, you can get one throw from your goalkeeper or one pass from a centre half, and you can basically take half of the opponent's team out of the game. And that's great flexibility, and not that many formations have that. However, you know, it isn't all just roses, because if this formation was by far and away the best, everyone would use it. And I mean, it's an incredibly good formation and incredibly popular, but it does have a couple of weaknesses, and I want to go along with these here. You know, earlier in the video, I was talking about the great thing about being able to get your fullbacks up the pitch to stretch the play. However, when you're coming up against formations, for example 4-3-3 with two very, very advanced wingers, you can often have your fullbacks hemmed in, and using fullbacks intelligently on attack is one of the key things in this formation. You know, if you don't get those fullbacks up the pitch, your play can be very, very narrow, and especially when you were up against a formation with tight midfielders or five in midfield, you need that width to stop your opponent just defending very, very narrow and stopping you from really getting anything going. So it's very, very dependent on getting your fullbacks up to support attacks. And like I was saying, if you are up against a 4-3-3 formation, you are sort of left with a little bit of a dilemma, because like I was saying, it is very, very important to get your fullbacks up the field, but if you do push up too far, you can leave space for your opposition wingers to get around you and get in behind. Because when you're playing just a normal 4-4-2 or a 4-2-3-1 formation, you have midfielders in wide areas of the pitch a lot more often, and this gives you an opportunity to, you know, play the ball to them, or if they push up further up the pitch, you'll have your fullbacks in position to defend. However, in this formation, if you're sending your fullbacks up the field to attack, you can leave yourself a little bit vulnerable on the counter-attack in the flanks. And the worst thing that can happen in this formation is when your midfielders and your centre-halves get pulled wide, because then you don't have the bodies in the ground to defend all over the pitch, and you can get caught out. So that's one of the bigger weaknesses of this formation, is on the break against teams with quick wingers, because before you can get back into your solid defensive position, they can exploit a little bit more space around the flanks that isn't available in other formations. And that is one way that you can concede goals, is when your fullback pushes too far up the pitch, you lose the ball gets passed wide, and then you're really under pressure on the counter-attack. So that's the major weakness of this formation. However, one way you can get around this is by having very mobile midfielders playing as the flanking central three. And in my ultimate team, I have players like Johan Cabaye, James Milner, Darren Fletcher, players that are either very, very mobile or have high stamina ratings. I mean, Darren Fletcher has a stamina rating in the 90s, I think, although don't quote me on that. But by having these very, very mobile midfielders, you can somewhat compensate for your lack of width in midfield when you're under the cosh, because one of the main problems with having only fullbacks wide on the pitch, apart from being vulnerable to a counter-attack when you're attacking, is sometimes if you're playing against a team that really negates that throw out to the centre forward or that quick ball that can really get you moving up the pitch. I mean, off the top of my head, 4-1-2-1-2 is an example of this, because their central defensive midfielder in that formation occupies pretty much the same space that your centre forward does in this formation. So you can get a little bit limited with your out balls in that situation, but by having these very, very mobile central midfielders, you can have them run the wide channels in attack, and in defence they can still come in and sit narrow and keep you nice and tight. So it's very, very important what personnel you use in midfield. That is the real key area of this formation, because if you have a particularly sluggish midfield, you know, you can get exploited on the flanks very, very easily in defence, and in attack it takes you a little bit too much time to get up the field and get yourself established in the opposition half. And you know, that's the one thing you've got to be careful about using this formation. You've got to ensure that your personnel is right in the right key areas, because too many times you see people, and a good example of this is Nuri Sahin. I mean, Nuri Sahin is a really good midfielder on this game, but I think he only has 57 pace. And if you play him in wide on a 3 midfield in the middle, you can get a little bit too narrow at times and a little bit too slow to respond. So that's the one thing you've got to be quite wary about. But as you can see from that little clip there, you know, Robin van Persie can drop back into wide positions, your strikers drop back into wide positions, and your centre forward just floats around the pitch. So you still stay very, very flexible, even with a narrow midfield. So if you do plan on using this formation, those are the things you've got to watch out for. But guys, I really hope you've enjoyed watching the video. This is going to be the first in a long series of formations that I'm going to be analysing. So if you have any particular formation you want me to look at, I'd be quite happy to do that. You know, first and foremost, I'm going to be focusing on ultimate team formations, because those are the ones where they're only set ones you can use. Because if I was to do career mode formations, there are practically infinite permutations on that. But if I do get through all of the ultimate team ones, I'll be quite happy to move on to that. But guys, once again, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, it would make a big difference to me in the channel if you could rate the video and leave a comment saying what you enjoyed. I mean, it helps new people find the channel. It makes the videos more accessible to everyone. So that is a really important thing if you have enjoyed the video. But guys, once again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.